Detective James Cooper stood at the gates of Havenwood Manor, his weathered notebook in hand. The old mansion loomed before him, its windows dark and uninviting. 3 days ago, the wealthy owner of the house, Mr. Richard Thompson, had disappeared without a trace. "Quite the mystery we have here," said Officer Wilson, who had called James to investigate. Mr. Thompson was last seen entering his study on Tuesday evening. The next morning, his housekeeper found the study empty, with no signs of forced entry or exit. James walked through the grand entrance hall, his trained eyes taking in every detail. The mansion was filled with expensive artwork and antique furniture, all perfectly in place. Nothing suggested a struggle or robbery. In the study, James found a cozy room lined with bookshelves. A large desk sat near the window, papers still scattered across its surface. He examined the window, locked from the inside. The door showed no signs of tampering. Did Mr. Thompson have any enemies? James asked the housekeeper, Mrs. Brown, a small woman in her 60s. "Oh, no, sir," she replied, wringing her hands. "Mr. Thompson was a kind man. He lived alone after his wife passed away last year. He spent most of his time in the study, working on his research about old houses." James noticed something odd about one of the bookshelves. The dust pattern was different near the bottom. Moving closer, he ran his fingers along the wooden frame and felt a slight draft. "Mrs. Brown, how long have you worked here?" 20 years, detective. I know every corner of this house." "Every corner?" James pulled several books from the shelf, revealing a small brass lever hidden behind them. "Did you know about this?" Mrs. Brown's eyes widened. I had no idea." James pulled the lever, and with a soft click, the entire bookshelf swung outward, revealing a dark passage behind it. "A hidden door," Officer Wilson whispered. "In all my years." James took out his flashlight and stepped into the passage. The beam revealed stone walls and a narrow staircase leading down. At the bottom, they found a large underground room filled with maps, old documents, and strange equipment. And there, sleeping on a small cot, was Richard Thompson. The man awoke with a start. "Oh dear," he said, looking embarrassed. "What time is it?" "Mr. Thompson," James said, "you've been missing for 3 days. Everyone's been worried sick." 3 days? Thompson looked shocked. "I was so caught up in my research, I lost track of time. You see, I discovered that this house was built over an old underground railroad station. I found references to it in some historical documents and finally located this hidden door. I've been down here studying these artifacts. I must have fallen asleep several times. I had some food and water. I keep down here for my research sessions, but I had no idea so much time had passed." James couldn't help but smile. The case of the vanishing homeowner turned out to be nothing more than an enthusiastic historian too absorbed in his work to realize he'd worried everyone. Later, as James filed his report, he reflected on how the most mysterious cases sometimes had the simplest explanations. Still, he had to admire Mr. Thompson's dedication to uncovering history's secrets, even if it meant becoming part of a mystery himself. Mrs. Brown made sure to stock the underground research room with more supplies after that, and Mr. Thompson promised to at least let her know when he was going to use his secret office. As for the hidden door of Havenwood, it wasn't so hidden anymore, but it had certainly made for an interesting case in Detective Cooper's notebook. The next time James drove past Havenwood Manor, he noticed lights coming from the study windows. Through them, he could see Mr. Thompson showing a group of excited historians his underground discovery. Some mysteries, James thought, had a way of bringing people together in the end.